like the whole Batman angry whisper thing going on. Like every time he talks, like, I'm so mad right now.
His whisper gets creepier every season. He's like, I am currently predisposed to you. He twirls his mustache.
That was good.
I'm looking forward to Pirate Littlefinger.
Littlefinger, yeah, he's gonna sell 7 seasons. FYI, guys, I'm totally whenever I go to my next con, I'm dressing up as Littlefinger. That's the cosplay. So I've never cosplayed before, but Littlefinger's coming.
I can't wait.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us again on the Cast Beyond the Wall. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and we are presented by our partner, We Got This Covered. Today, I am recording with all my 2 co-hosts, also in the desert, suffering through the sun, the heat, and the shining devil rays, or whatever they're called. Sir, introduce yourself.
Austin Lucari, glad to be here again.
And from the land of nothingness, tornadoes, and tornado shelters, and Bible Belt controversies. Sir, introduce yourself.
Daniel Stoll, and I'm too extremely excited to talk about this episode. I feel like we got a lot to talk about.
And we are here to review this week's episode, Breaker of Chains. And joining us this week is a good friend of mine, all the way back from back in the day. He is joining us all the way from Chicago. Sir, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Sir Benjamin of House Friend, and I'm joining you from the land of corrupt politicians and snow in May. So it's a perfect fit for the world of Game of Thrones. I think I live it half the time. So
I told my nephew Alex, he just turned 26 today. I said, Alex, I called him for his birthday, and I said, it's too bad you're not 4 years older, because I could have given you a U.S. Senate seat for your birthday.
We're so glad to have Ben on again this season, and today we're going to be taking, we are live via YouTube, and we'll be taking questions and answers throughout the show. Before we go ahead and recap Breaker of Chains, I'm going to ask, we all like to explore Westeros. We think, man, Westeros is the place we don't want to be. But if we had to be there, what kind of decisions will we make? And the question I have this week, for you to understand us hosts a little better, is if we were all fighting in the War of the Five Kings, what Westeros army would we fight in? Starting off, Mr. Austin Lucari, what army would you join?
I would have to join the Greyjoy army because it's a pirate's life for me.
And really bad eggs. Drink up, me hearty yo-ho.
You can't beat that, raping, pillaging.
Simple as that.
I can't blame you. It makes life a lot easier. A lot more simpler. And apparently the Greyjoys are doing whatever the heck they want still. Like, no one's done jack with them yet still. So, hey, more power to you. Daniel, who would you pick? What army would you fight for?
Well, I have a couple different answers for this. I'd want to pick the Lannisters for, obviously, safety reasons, but I would honestly probably end up fighting for the Starks because that's sort of where my philosophy is, but I would like to say go for Renly, actually, because I feel like he was probably the best candidate of the War of the Five Kings. I feel like he had the potential to be the best king, and so I'd like to say that I would, in the end, support him and fight for him.
Very good pick, sir. Mr. Ben from House Friend, who would you pick?
well, first of all, I'm a sir, but second of all, no, I liked Renly a lot, and I thought that Renly was the sort of leader that you wanted to believe in, even if he maybe was not the most legitimate, like he didn't have the most legitimate of claims, but and this might be the Chicago coming out in me, but I think I kind of lean toward the Lannisters. There's a self-preservation instinct in me that kind of says, well, you want to fight for the side that's going to win, and I think Tywin is an incredible leader. He's so compelling, and I think that, that is a family that knows how to play smart politics, really. They can adapt to any situation and figure out a way for their circumstances to always benefit them, which, is a backhanded way to compliment them, but...
We mentioned Renly, and I gotta say, guys, I'd probably go with Renly, just purely because they look like they're having the most fun. Sure, they don't actually ever fight a battle, and sure, Renly ends up getting killed by Demon Vagina Monster, but, before, when they were all just jousting and messing around, he had the biggest army out of any of the armies. It was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of hope there and a lot of promise that I really wish we could have seen acted out. But, that's not how Game of Thrones works, so sadly we didn't get to see how he would have won. But I think that would have been a fun army to fight in. At least I'm with the Baratheon that's not burning people at the stake, so there's that. Well, let's go ahead and move into our recap of this week's episode, Breaker of Chains.
Take him! You did this!
Whoever killed the king wanted me to lose my head for it.
Your circumstances have improved markedly. I would have been the queen.
Man says all he needs to crush us, he just doesn't know it yet.
Who's going to protect you at Castle Black?
I've never heard of visions and prophecies winning a war.
I'm running out of time.
I have something to say to the people of Meereen.
All right, guys, before we get really deep into this episode, we'll start by getting some initial thoughts. Ben, can you go ahead and tell us kind of what you thought of the episode?
Yeah, I think that this is an episode where a lot of really interesting and compelling things happen. I think, again, this week, probably as it should be, given how huge episode 2 was, the most interesting and compelling and emotionally powerful scenes this week are just the ones where we're sort of sifting through the ashes after the fallout after King Joffrey's assassination. But with that also comes the very controversial stuff that we're going to get into. And I've got a lot of thoughts on that, and it was kind of pushing and pulling me throughout the episode as far as like how it affected my overall like feelings about it. But I think that it was a solid episode that is going to give us a lot to talk about.
I actually really enjoyed this week's episode. I thought it was really strong. I thought we had a lot of good character moments in this episode. And sort of like Ben said, you know, we're getting to see kind of the reaction to everything that happened. And so there's not a lot of great, epic decision things that happen, but it is really cool to see all those character moments that we get today. And we get to see characters continue to grow and evolve in good and both good and bad ways.
You guys pretty much covered it. It's a controversial episode. We'll talk about that more later. We kind of already hit a real big, giant plot point last week, and so it's starting to just set some things up again. Hopefully we have even bigger things in the future. So
I totally agree with everything you guys have said. This was an episode that's definitely, the whole point is to kind of capture the fallout of what happened last week, kind of show a little bit of the impact. We still don't have the whole picture, and I think that's kind of the point. These are more like developments that we're getting that are obviously going to have much bigger play. I mean, it's still, even though last week was a big climactic moment, it's still just another piece of the puzzle that we're constructing that's going to end up playing out in the season as the season progresses and we get to the big ending. So let's go ahead and jump right into this, guys. Right off the bat, first scene of the episode, we get to see the whole Joffrey's dead. Tyrion's framed. He's getting guarded up, and Dontos grabs Sansa, and they head for the hills. And I've got to say, as a book reader, I have a there are some scenes, you guys probably know, everyone who's read a lot of books kind of gets this vibe. Sometimes when you're reading a book, you have scenes that are so powerfully cemented into your mind that it plays like a movie as you're reading it. And this was one of those scenes, the purple wedding, how all the fallout from it. And this episode, this scene in particular, I thought was incredible at capturing the cinematic feel I had in my imagination of how it felt. Like when Sansa and Dontos are on the boat going out through all this, the fog, and then there's this ominous boat, and you're like, oh, who's on it? Totally picked up exactly how I felt reading it, and the reveal was just as big. So what'd you guys make of the scene? Littlefinger's on the boat.
I'm not convinced he's involved as much as he knows everything that goes on always. He could have been involved, but I don't think he has to be involved.
I think that he, my thought process behind that is exactly what you said, Austin, in that he doesn't have to have been involved in the conspiracy to know that it's going to happen. He just doesn't have to stop it. He always knows everything that's going on. And I will say I was surprised when I saw him. I wasn't thinking. We hadn't seen him at all this season, and in the back of my head I was missing him because, as I mentioned earlier,
there's a hole in your heart.
There's a Littlefinger-shaped hole in my heart.
It doesn't matter what we want. Once we get it, then we want something else.
I love Littlefinger, and I was thrilled to see him initially, and then we'll talk about that a little bit later.
I guess my kind of reaction was he had to have some sort of involvement. He at least someone at least told him it was going to happen, or something like that. But for me, more my thing is if he is involved, two things immediately occur to me if he's involved. First, he has an amazing excuse because he's supposed to be in the Vale getting married. He's not even supposed to be in King's Landing when this happens. So that's, if he is involved, that's outstanding. And second, my initial thoughts are, does he really care about Sansa this much to save her life? Is this why, if he is involved, is this why he's doing it? You know, what is the purpose of getting rid of, if he is involved, what is the purpose of getting rid of Joffrey? Is it just to save Sansa so that he can get her out of King's Landing? Because we know that he loved Catelyn, and I believe he tells her that he will take care of Sansa if he can. So maybe this is like a promise to her, you know. So that was my kind of initial thoughts of why would he be involved in this in the first place?
Because he's super creepy.
Well, he is a little creepy when it comes to the hitting on Sansa thing. But I will say, Littlefinger does have something to gain by taking Sansa too. Because you remember, everyone thinks Bran and Rickon are dead. Robb's dead. So she's actually still the key to the North. Other point being, though, we get a little more. We do get a little more Peter Baelish characteristics here. We see how he does a little bit of his business. He likes to promise people gold and then shoot.
I promised I'd get her to you safely.
Softly, my friend. Boys is carryover water.
I should get back before someone thinks to look for me.
First, you'll want your pay. 10,000, was it?
10,000.
Wait! You don't want the Queen to hear, do you?
1,000 gold cloaks are searching for you. And if they found you, how do you think they would punish the girl who murdered the king?
I didn't hurt anyone.
I know, but you must admit it looks suspicious. The king who executed your father, who tormented you for years, and you fled the scene of his murder.
Why did you kill him?
Because he was a drunk and a fool, and I don't trust drunk fools.
He saved me.
Saved you, my lady. He followed my orders, every one of them. He did it all for gold. Money buys a man's silence for a time. A bolt in the heart buys it forever.
You know, as I said, with my undying love for Littlefinger, I want to read you verbatim what my notes were over the course of this scene, from the moment that Dantos grabbed Sansa to the moment that Dantos was killed. Thought process. Oh, I like him, referring to Dantos. So I was like, oh, okay, so he's a good dude, man. It's like I like him. I like him a lot, and he's doing his best to really protect Sansa. He cares about her. Yay, Littlefinger, because I was so excited to see him. And then the last thing that I wrote was shit. Littlefinger. And brokenhearted again, man. I just wanted to believe he was doing something from the goodness of his heart and that he might have let man, I just thought they might have been two cool dudes who were out to save an innocent young girl, and I don't know what I expected.
Yeah, you can't expect Littlefinger to be a good person, I'll tell you that much. He'll only do a good thing if it will benefit him in the long term. So we'll go ahead and move on. So Marjorie and Olenna are having a little spiel here where they're kind of talking about what's going on. And it's
Short scene here.
And, Marjorie's kind of sad. She's had all this bad luck with the kings. I mean, she's like, man, oh man, the first guy was gay and he didn't think I was that hot. The second guy was a sociopath who enjoyed torturing animals. What am I going to do now? Because I'm still not a queen.
I'm curious if you agree with me on this, Austin, because I know that you have your theories about who was behind the assassination.
Everybody's a suspect!
I just sort of assumed from last episode and then right into this exact conversation that the Tyrells were behind it.
Yeah, and I do too. And I don't know that this conversation changes that. Some of these things are in here to kind of throw you off the trail, just trying to trick you. They don't make it very easy.
Well, the one thing that sort of, set me against it, and you're right, the good writing does that, sets you off the trail and keeps you away from the real culprit. And I am a little bit of a different mindset after this particular scene for one reason, and that's that they draw attention to the fact that Marjorie would have been a lot more valuable had they consummated the marriage.
Yeah.
And if she or anyone else loyal to her or to that family was going to kill Joffrey, they should have waited until after they consummated the marriage. Not that Marjorie probably wanted to go through that, because who would? Mm-hmm. But she would have actually been queen at that point.
Versus power reverting to Cersei as queen regent and Tommen.
Right. Yeah. Which... Yeah, I agree with you. It was I thought the same thing until one of the next lines where Olenna says, you did wonderful work on Joffrey, which should make the next one that much easier.
You're right.
Which makes me think that, this is part of the plan. They always intended for her to end up marrying Tommen. Joffrey just needed to be out of the way first. I could be wrong, but I want it to be the Tyrells. It feels right for it to be the Tyrells. It may not actually be the Tyrells.
I feel like it puts Marjorie out of the loop a little bit, personally. And that could be a red herring. I don't know. It seemed more like she was like, the way she was talking seemed like, she's like, I was going to go through with this. I really was, And you would think she wouldn't be talking like that if she was the one who poisoned Joffrey, right?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely would be unnatural for her to say something like that if she was involved. But I don't trust him. I don't trust the show. The show's trying to trick me.
Well, and I don't trust Marjorie, man. Like, we've learned the hard way, I think, in the past that Marjorie, for how good she is at seeming sweet and caring, and she's very magnetic and very attractive, and she has a great mask. But I do think that she's a snake in the grass, and I think that she would have been totally capable of doing it. And then I think she would have been totally capable of doing it in broad daylight, and then I think that she would be completely convincing if she wanted to tell people that it wasn't her.
Right.
I think that she could get away with it.
She really wanted him to eat that pie.
Oh, yeah, she did.
She ate the pie. There was the pie. We're going to move into some darker territory, where we go and kind of see the tomb of Joffrey, where they're kind of having a visitation. There was a great scene here. There was a controversial scene here. But we do get to see, Tommen and Cersei are mourning the death of Joffrey, and lo and behold, Tywin shows up and practically just blows off Joffrey, and he's like, Tommen, what's up, man? You know what? He's dead. You know what that means, right? Oh, you're the king. Congratulations. Now, I'm going to give you Kingship 101.
So, we have a man who starves himself to death, a man who lets his own brother murder him, and a man who thinks that winning and ruling are the same thing. What do they all lack?
Wisdom.
Yes.
Wisdom is what makes a good king.
Yes. But what is wisdom? A house with great wealth and fertile lands asks you for your protection against another house with a strong navy that could one day oppose you. How do you know which choice is wise and which isn't? Any experience of treasuries and granaries or shipyards and soldiers? No, of course not. A wise king knows what he knows and what he doesn't. You're young. A wise young king listens to his counselors and heeds their advice until he comes of age. And the wisest kings continue to listen to them long afterwards. Your brother was not a wise king. Your brother was not a good king. If he had been, perhaps he'd still be alive.
I absolutely love this scene. Again, it goes back to the respect that I have for Tywin. If you're on the Lannister side, he's made every fantastic decision that he could possibly make. And again, we see him basically training up Tommen to be a great king. And I kind of guessed the word, before he said it. Was like, oh, he's going to talk about wisdom. And I just really enjoyed that, seeing Tywin saying wisdom it shows a lot about Tywin's character too. I think that he values wisdom as the most important thing the king can have. Yes, these other things are important, but if you have wisdom, that's the most important thing. And if you don't have a lot of wisdom, you need to consult your advisors. And most wise kings will continue to consult them even long after they have a lot of knowledge. And
right.
I just thought it's brilliant by Tywin. It again shows us how incredibly intelligent he is, and I don't know. I just thought this was really strong.
It's for sure a power play by Tywin, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's taking the power away from Cersei.
At the same time, that whole scene...
I would like to point out, I thought it was really funny. Cersei says, I don't think this is the time for this. And literally, nobody said anything to her. They just kept on talking like she wasn't in the room. Like, I was just like, yes.
Tommen, he has innocence, and you know that Tommen's really not going to probably be making that big of decisions anytime soon. That Tywin's probably going to be doing the majority of it. I trust Tywin to make decent decisions, at least as far as the ruling of the kingdom. And I think the scene kind of inspires some hope for for Westeros, really, I think. Well, when you've gone through this horrible period with Joffrey where you're just like, this is not going well. And this was kind of a nice scene despite Joffrey laying dead in the middle of the room.
Probably because of Joffrey laying dead in the room. I think that this goes back to what is so powerful and interesting about Tywin as a character. This is an amazing monologue. It's written so well. It's performed so well. I just love the structure and the cadence of it, and I love, the ideology behind the words. And I think that he makes a lot of good points in saying that ideally, a king would know his weaknesses. He would be wise and use his own wisdom when applicable and turn to other people to help him make decisions when he can. But there's a duplicity there because we do know that Tywin is telling him this because he's young, he's innocent, he's being thrust into a role that has driven grown men crazy, much less a small child. And he knows that he can use that presence on the throne to further his own agenda. So that even though he is saying these things, he probably doesn't necessarily believe them. I'm not sure that this lecture that he's giving Tommen is really his own philosophy. I just think that it's another thing in a long line of manipulations to keep his own agenda in play.
When he's not being cold and calculating, he is smart enough to know when to throw people a bone, I think, and that's how he's kind of kept his army together, obviously. And Ben, that's a great point to question the sincerity of the kind of this monologue. I hadn't even thought about it like that because I think he is echoing an ideal world. Tommen is probably very young, so he's very black and white. So he's like, of course, a king needs to be wise. And so Tywin is trying really hard to get him very early on to start thinking and asking the right questions, I guess. Whether or not he actually believes in them or not is another circumstance, but he wants to basically raise him from a young age. It would be interesting to see if we get any more scenes like that between him and Tommen. Sorry. This leads us right into the next scene, which is the big controversy this week, which is the exchange between Jaime and Cersei. And there's a lot of layers to this scene, actually. First off, it starts off kind of like a normal exchange. She's so sad. She's convinced Tyrion is the one who's killed her, so she demands that Jaime kill Tyrion. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so dramatic. But then, obviously, we get into this sexual tension, and then she decides she's not ready for that step, basically. And the scene kind of escalates from there, and he kind of pushes harder, and we get a scene that is debatably him raping her, which I think is very appalling for a lot of people, given Jaime's arc last season.
I will say, when I first saw it, I didn't think it was as big a deal as it was till after I started reading reactions from it. I thought it was definitely, there's definitely a line there that I think Jaime crosses, and for me, I don't think Jaime is a rapist. If this is rape, I don't feel like Jaime would make this decision. So from a character perspective, if we're gonna, I've heard both sides. I've heard a couple people argue to me that it was not rape, that Cersei consented in the middle of their tussle or whatever, and then other people that are like, no, absolutely, is very much rape. And if we're gonna say it is rape, I don't feel like Jaime would do this. But I don't want to judge this scene again too harshly because I don't know if the show has a plan with this scene. I don't know if they're going somewhere with this. I didn't think it was that big a deal, but then I read a lot of reactions and I thought, okay, maybe this is a bigger deal than I first.
Here's the thing: it seems pretty unclear to a lot of people whether this was actually rape or not. So it's hard to interpret this. It's been very difficult, I think, for people to interpret the scene because we're not really sure what the intention is.
But I remember the director of the this episode said that he intended it to be like, start off sort of Jaime forcing on himself, but as it goes along, Cersei consents and it becomes a consensual thing. And if that's the case, I think it could have been done more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the intent, then I argue that it was bad direction. So much so that the actor Nikolai says it was rape.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I believe
in an
he
interview
does
with
say
IGN, he basically comes out and says, "Oh yeah, it was totally rape." So if the actor performing it says it was, he at least got that from the script or the director or somebody. He didn't come up with that entirely on his own. And if the intent was for it to kind of change, you better make that very, very clear to the actor that needs to come across. And I don't think that did. I don't think it came across in the scene at all.
Yeah, I agree. It was very ineffective if that was the intent.
Well, this is another addition to a string of me being a bad judge of character, because anyone who knows me knows that Jaime is my favorite character. And it was one of those things, man, where I was desperate for it to not be a rape scene.
Right.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so we're in the middle of it. And yeah, it's like I actually think that there is a little bit of legitimacy to the argument that Jaime forces himself on Cersei. She initially doesn't consent and then eventually gives in. But here's the thing. I was watching it and there's sort of like this roller coaster moment where it seems like, okay, he forces himself on her. She tries to push him off. Eventually, it actually seems like she's okay with it. And then immediately she starts kicking and punching and she
sobbing.
Is submissive. She's maybe submissive to that for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then immediately she's back to forcing him off of her. It's tough. It's a tough thing for me to reconcile because I actually can understand it from a character perspective. Here's a guy who has lost everything that he was. He doesn't have his hand anymore, so he's a terrible swordsman. And Cersei looks at him differently because he's not the great, fighter that he was. He's not the King Slayer anymore.
Right.
And, no matter how much she might say that she loved him for him, she was hugely attracted to, his title and his stature and the sort of person that he was. And so she has been distant with him, and this is the only woman that he's ever loved, as he stated last season. This is, I think, an act of desperation from him. He just wants one, moment of affection, and, he wants to hold on to something that he used to have and something that used to be so important to him and something that was so integral to him and he can't have it anymore, and he lashes out. And I understand that from a character perspective. It doesn't make it any less difficult to watch because rape is rape.
Right.
Rape is just rape.
It's complicated because when you spin it like that, that's something you can kind of understand. And I do want to raise the point that this is Game of Thrones. Just because Jaime has undergone a redemption arc does not mean he is all of a sudden the white knight in shining armor who can do no wrong either. I mean, this is Game of Thrones. The characters are very complex and layered. It's like Arya a couple weeks ago. We love Arya. We're going to root for Arya all the way, but her killing that guy in the manner that she did, that's a dark moment. That's a really dark moment that I think we should probably question, should I be rooting for her at this point? Because this is to show that even the most heroic characters that we like can do really despicable things.
And let me bring this up, and I'll raise some questions based on probably one of the more popular articles that was written about this topic. On AV Club, one of the writers wrote an article with a very and kind of inflammatory title. It's called Rape of Thrones. Why are the Game of Thrones showrunners rewriting the books into misogyny?
Wow.
And I'm not a book reader, and so I wanted to bring up some of these points that she talks about and see if you guys agree, having had read the books. But one of her main points is she says she's not opposed to adaptation. She thinks adaptations are necessary and good, and a show like this has done some really, really good things with adaptations. So she's not coming from the perspective of purist or anything like that. I think all of us pretty much agree, adaptations are good for shows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she goes on to say, it seems to be so out of character for Jaime in the scenario. She concedes that it could be going somewhere. So, it can be a really good plot device to both humanize the victim and the rapist, and really like take it somewhere. And we don't know that yet. We haven't seen that yet. But her argument really kind of circles around that this has happened before in the show, specifically with Daenerys. In the very first episode, she gets raped by Khal Drogo. And the way it happens in the books is, according to her, and she put some of the lines in there, is very, very different from what happens in the show. And in the books, Khal Drogo basically asks for consent. And she characterizes that as, Khal Drogo is one of the first people to give Daenerys respect. And she consents to it. And it really makes more sense to her character later on in the show when she's calling him my moon and stars, these sort of things, that she loves him. Whereas in the show kind of makes it almost like a weird like Stockholm syndrome thing where she's sympathizing and ends up loving her own rapist. So that's the argument that she poses. I don't think she makes a very good, strong argument, and you guys will have to read it to really be sure, for it being an epidemic of misogyny in the show. But I do think it's a good argument for really changing the characterization of the characters in a way that isn't necessarily better. Yeah. And having read the books, what do you guys think about that?
Well, here's my thing. The circumstances for between Jaime and Cersei are different in the show. First off, Jaime actually didn't get back until this scene right here, actually. Jaime and Brienne don't make it back to King's Landing until Joffrey's on his bed and he goes into the tomb to Cersei, and they still have sex next to his body. The difference is Cersei.
It's the first time they've seen each other.
It's the first time they'd seen each other at all, like since book 1 or whatever. And there's that, and then Cersei's motivation for not wanting to have sex is different. She initially does not want to have sex in the book, but it's because she's afraid she's going to get caught, not because they've got some type of rift between them. And then they have sex, and it's definitely starts off as she's like hesitant, not unwilling, but hesitant, and then it becomes consensual. Versus here in the show,
there's dialogue in the books that like she says, "Quickly, quickly, now, do it now."
Right. Yeah. Right. But in the show, the circumstances are different.
They are.
He's been back for a while, and she's intentionally distanced herself from him. For whatever reason, she's decided that she's not as interested. She's found other ways to support herself, and like Ben said, Jaime has kind of lost those things that she found very attractive about him. Now it's him kind of pressing himself on her. I think Ben did a great way of describing, I think, what the show is going for. I don't know if I like it better or not. I haven't decided yet, and I think before I can make a fair judgment of that, I really need to see where they're taking this throughout the season, because we are only seeing one moment in this ongoing arc. So it's really not fair. I think it's really unfair to completely write this off just yet, because we don't know. They could be going somewhere really cool with it, but it definitely was a scene that was shocking, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I feel about it. And it was definitely uncomfortable. And like Ben said, also, it is kind of sad to see this character who's gone through this big redemptive arc make a dark turn so quickly.
You're not wrong. Your thought process, I don't think, is wrong, considering you lose the inner dialogue.
George R. R. Martin kind of chimed in on this earlier today. And I don't know if I'll read the whole excerpt because it's pretty long, but I'll give you guys a sense of what he was saying. Quote, "The hall dynamic is different in the show, where Jaime has been back for weeks at least, maybe longer, and he and Cersei have been in each other's company on numerous occasions after quarreling. The setting is the same, but neither character is in the same place as in the books, which may be why the producers played the sept out differently. But that's just my surmise. We never discussed that scene to the best of my recollection. Also, I was writing the scene from Jaime's point of view, so the reader is inside his head hearing his thoughts. On TV, the camera is external. You don't know what anyone is thinking or feeling, just what they are saying and doing. So if the show had retained some of Cersei's dialogue from the books, as me and Daniel mentioned, it might have left somewhat of a different impression. But that dialogue was very much shaped by the circumstances of the books, delivered by a woman who is seeing her lover again for the first time in a long time. I'm not sure how this works out on the new timeline. That's really all I can say on the issue. The scene was always intended to be disturbing either way, but I do regret it has disturbed people for the wrong reasons."
Yeah, I think that in the article, kind of along those lines, the article basically accuses the directors of putting that scene in there, and the writers of putting that scene in there purely for shock value. I think it's probably premature to make that type of accusation, but if that is true, then that's a problem. If you're only doing it for shock value, you are treating this is misogynistic.
I don't think they're doing it just for shock value.
I don't think so either. But like I said, it is premature to make that determination, I think.
I don't want to get off on this too much because we've got a lot yet to talk about, and we're still in this section. But in the AV Club article, when she refers to the Daenerys and Khal Drogo relationship, Daenerys ends up becoming, the strongest female character on the show.
Yeah.
And one of the strongest female characters that I can think of on any show right now.
Yeah.
And so. And I also think that it adds an interesting dynamic to their relationship, that it does take so long for that guy who was completely primitive and ends up looking bad in the process because we're sympathetic to her and we think of him as just being savage and being brutal and just being, a completely uncivilized person. It ends up being an interesting dynamic when they actually end up with feelings for one another. She ends up taking pity on him because she realizes that he didn't understand really how to love, and he ends up falling for her because she is the first woman to be not only compassionate but also strong and intelligent, and he's drawn to that. In that same way, that relationship ended up being just an incredible story for me. I loved the Drogo Daenerys relationship.
I totally agree with that. And it was I think the initial change there was probably to make the Dothraki look a lot more barbaric, if anything, so you can get an idea of how barbaric their culture is. I think it does actually add an extra layer to, like Brent was saying, to her arc, because she has to learn how to take control in that relationship, which is odd because women are purely sex objects in their culture. So
that's a character who refused to be treated like a sex object and ended up becoming a powerful leader.
Yeah.
So I think this show is capable of putting women in situations that victimize them, and then flipping the tables and have them getting the last laugh and having them, rise above it. And I am not completely sold on this either, but I do think that it would be a pity if we were to write the show off just because of it.
Absolutely. Misogyny in Game of Thrones is an interesting conversation that we can delve into a little bit, maybe. And I do want to bring this back on when we have some lady guest hosts, because we're all a bunch of we're a bunch of dudes sitting around here talking about it. But I think the show has a very interesting dynamic. For on one hand, it does present to us some of the most well-developed, intelligent, thought-out, and powerful women. I mean, Cersei's a great woman. I can't stand her, but she's a fantastic character, masterfully written, well-developed, one of the best on TV. Daenerys, Arya, there are a lot of really empowering women characters on the show.
There are several strong female characters on the show too. Even Catelyn was a very strong female character.
Right.
Like you said, Cersei, Daenerys, Arya, even Melisandre, in some sense, is a strong female character. A lot of the females on Game of Thrones are very strong characters.
And I do want to shy away a little bit from, the classification of the strong female character. I don't mean so much like strong female character as in, they're a woman, but hey, they can kick ass and they can hang with the big ones.
But it's
three-dimensional female characters.
Exactly. Three-dimensional is a much better...
Three-dimensional female characters.
That's good.
That's what's really important.
There have been a lot of debates online about the term strong, so I like that. Yes, three-dimensional, well-developed, well-thought-out characters, women that seem like they're real. They're not just written to be women characters. They are written to be real characters in their universe. And the double-edged sword there with Game of Thrones, though, on the misogyny topic, is that this is also a show that is known for its nudity and sex, so it's kind of this really weird temperament. Some of that is based on the universe that Martin's created, where sex is a big deal and women are objectified, but some of it also it's HBO, so
right. And we do have to remember that this is not a 21st century world. This is a very old world where women are, like you said,
it's based on
women were treated
medieval.
this way. and it was not that big a deal to a lot of people at that time period.
There's a lot of different ways to look at this scene. I think we're going to have to wait and see where this goes before we can best determine how this scene, we really feel about the scene. And to be fair, we had the incest rape. Now let's move on to the big orgy. The first one in Game of Thrones history.
Oh, wait. Did you just call it the first one?
That is the first true orgy. Now, you might have seen like a couple dudes laying on one guy, so if you classify that as an orgy, but I'm talking multiple men, multiple women, laying in a pile, making out a whole 9 yards, taking turns, switching partners. Yeah, this is an orgy.
I mean, I've definitely seen Tyrion with like 4 women. So,
but they're okay. It depends on how you classify orgy. But I'm thinking this is the first time we've ever seen 2 dudes in the bed with like 3 or 4 girls. I don't know. Yeah, Oberyn, half of Westeros, Martell, in bed with Littlefinger's boy at the brothel. And I thought this was a clever use of sexposition here. As Game of Thrones has become known to do, sexposition where it's like, these guys are actually kind of talking about their philosophy on life and like how they do things and compare.
All while they're doing it.
All while they're doing it, exactly.
It's really efficient, really, you know?
I mean, that way drive viewer numbers. Listen. If they can have sex and talk at the same time, think of how much more content we could shove into the show. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Not even just that. Think of how much more time you're going to have in your day if you're having sex and getting things done.
You like them both the same? Boys and girls.
Does that surprise you?
Everyone has a preference.
And everyone is missing half the world's pleasure. The gods made that, and it delights me. The gods made this, and it delights me. When it comes to war, I fight for Dorne. When it comes to love, I don't choose sides.
But really the highlight of the scene, though, is when Tywin comes in and they have a little conversation. And I thought this was a great scene because both of these actors really seem like they're top of the line. I mean, every actor on Game of Thrones is great, but these 2 actors looked like they were having a lot of fun with this conversation. But we get a little bit of insight here. First off, Oberyn studied poisons. I don't know if you guys probably didn't know that yet. Me and Stoll kind of had an idea about that one, but we know that he studied poisons. And it's just funny enough that Joffrey got poisoned at his own wedding, so there's that. And FYI, his nickname in the books is the Red Viper. They haven't called him that on the show yet, and I'm not sure when or if they're going to drop that, but I'm just waiting for it. And I think Tywin, this conversation was really great. I got the vibe of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So what did you think about Oberyn and Tywin in this scene?
I think that's exactly it. I think it's Tyrion kind of alludes to this a little bit later. Is like leave it to Tywin to turn the murder of his grandson into political gain. He's just he wants to bring Dorne in. Dorne's powerful. Dorne has armies. He brings up that Dorne was the only house that was able, or the only area that was able to resist the Targaryens. So he views them as a powerful ally if he can gain them. So he offers them a spot on the council, makes him a judge at the trial. It's definitely a very, very shrewd move by Tywin.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic scene. I really enjoyed this scene, and we, like you said, the actors in the scene did a fantastic job. I really love the conversation, just getting to see how they work together. That was really great, and I just thought that, again, it just shows Tywin's character, how just intelligent he is and how political he can be. And
well, he offers up the mountain. He's like, yeah, I'll give you a spot on the council, and you can have met with your buddy the mountain over there. If you
I think it's also important that he 100% denies having anything to do with Elia. When Oberyn asked him if he has anything to do with that situation, or if he told the mountain to kill her or anything like that, he says that I categorically had nothing to do with it. He just absolutely no involvement.
He's like, did I have anything to do with it? Well, not categorically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that he was basically saying I had zero to do with this. I don't know if that's true or not, but he does basically say to Oberyn, and then the end says, hey, I'll let you go with the mountain. I'll help you get the justice for that if you help me do this. And so I thought it was very, he knew exactly what card to play to get Oberyn on his side.
Right. That was very, very smart. So. And I think, and it shows that Tywin really is, he's so good at playing the game, because he brings up things like Daenerys again, something that last we heard him, he kind of wrote, when Joffrey brought it up, he kind of wrote it off as nothing, like it wasn't even a thing. But now that they've gotten hold of they've got the throne down pretty much. And honestly, now that Joffrey's out of the way, he's like, okay, well, let's start preparing for the next big thing, because I know that there are problems coming. I know that we've still got those stinking pirates up in the north sailing their boats around, and I know that we've still got this big threat over game. So he really is prepping for the next big move. Now, maybe not a war, but he knows that whatever it is, he's going to need Dorne to come into the fold.
Yeah, and this goes back to the point I made earlier about the Lannisters being adaptable. Tywin is, he's an opportunist, and he saw an opportunity to, as you guys said, get Dorne on their side. And I think that the reason that there's an interesting dynamic between Tywin and Oberyn is because Oberyn is, I think, kind of unpredictable. He's my favorite new character this season. I think that he has, he's got a huge personality, he's got such a presence, and he seems like such a loose cannon. I'm not sure that Tywin's good faith in Oberyn is going to end up being rewarded.
I think he's definitely a wild card. You could put it that way. Yeah. I mean, even though Tywin's making some huge concessions there, you're still like, is this guy going to take advantage of this? I mean, I still think, there's a lot of room for insanity to unfold with that move.
Yeah. Oberyn's definitely the most unpredictable character that Tywin has put some sort of faith in, I think, that we've seen in the show so far. So that's a very good point.
He does bring up that Oberyn knows the poison, knows how to deal with poisons and all that stuff, but really doesn't believe that he was involved at all. It makes me think that Tywin knows actually who did it.
Let me put it this way. I feel like Tywin probably has a pretty good idea, because he's very smart and logical and knows how to break it down. And he knows that Oberyn wouldn't have jack to gain off that, really.
He'd have an especially good idea if it was him.
Right. Right. So if
I'm also not so sure that Joffrey's death is anything to Tywin other than an inconvenience, because he still, has the position of power. He hadn't really lost anything in the process, and I mean, come on, he didn't like Joffrey.
Okay, no.
Well, not only was it not an inconvenience, I think it was a windfall for him.
Yeah, I think it was a huge win.
He loves it.
Yeah. I think it's actually like, thank God, now I've got a king I can control and just tell what to do. Joffrey's the freaking idiot who cut Ned Stark's head off and started a freaking war and had to clean up his mess. Now I've got some dude, I'm just like, hey, don't do that. And guess what? He doesn't do it.
Right. And him and Cersei actually immediately gained a lot from his death. Cersei immediately becomes Queen Regent. Tywin has a lot more control now. He doesn't have to worry about the loose cannon. So they both gain substantially from Joffrey's death, except for the fact that it's their
that's the thing. Everybody gains off of Joffrey's death, and Tywin, obviously, based on how he interacted with Cersei and Tommen back in the Sept, he doesn't care that Joffrey's dead. I really don't think he cares at all. In fact, I think deep down he's probably pretty dang happy. He's probably like, yes! Our final scene in King's Landing this week was a very touching scene, and an episode that reinforced how dark every character we know is, even the ones we really like a lot. We had a nice, legitimate, organic, warm moment between our man Podrick and Tyrion. And it was heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, because you do get to see that this is probably one of the most legitimate relationships Tyrion's ever had. It's the only guy he's really ever truly trusted, and not only that, very unlike most characters in this show, relationships in this show, it's mutual feeling, because Podrick gets offered knighthood if he sells out Tyrion, but no. He's a good guy deep down, because he tells Tyrion that he got the deal. And then Tyrion's like, listen, man, don't stick up for me, just get the F out of here. So, it was a very nice, legitimate scene, very sad.
There's something else, my lord. A man, I didn't know his face. He came to ask if I'd testify against you. Said I'd be named Sir Podrick Payne if I told the judges you'd bought a poison called the Strangler.
Sir Podrick Payne? That's a nice ring to it. What did you tell him?
I didn't tell them anything, my lord.
Are you going to accept their offer?
My lord.
Testifying against me wasn't a suggestion. If they can't tempt you with honey, Choose something less sweet.
You've been good to me, my lord.
Pod. The trial's in a fortnight. They'll want an answer before that.
Already gave them an answer, my lord.
I will not have you dying on my behalf. Do you hear me? If I have to take that long walk to the executioner's block, I don't want to see your head already mounted.
My lord.
Pod, I am giving you an order. Go and find my brother and tell him I need him. And get yourself out of King's Landing before it's too late. Pod! This is farewell.
Farewell.
Pod. There has never lived a more loyal squire.
I mean, and this is Podrick, who did save his life back at the Battle of Blackwater, and who has really been by his side for a couple seasons. So, I don't know. That was a nice little touch there.
Yeah, it was a really nice little moment, and I actually thought that, usually Peter Dinklage kind of takes the scene, but I felt like, I don't even know his name, but the actor for Podrick did a fantastic job with this scene. I felt like he almost, he didn't steal it from Peter Dinklage, but he really performed strongly in that scene. I thought it was really, really surprising and really awesome.
Well, from a character that doesn't really say a whole lot.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
the fact
my lord.
that
No, my lord.
Yeah, I thought he did a real fantastic job with this scene. So, just
was,
his little facial expressions at the end where he's sad and understanding what's going on. So,
he snuck in some comforts for Tyrion, some treats and things,
and some candles,
but also informed him that basically Tyrion, we see a little bit in this scene that Tyrion's in bad shape as far as this trial goes. All his witnesses are gone. Podrick has to leave, or he'll be killed, basically. Sansa ran away, which he just found out about.
Varys has already been taken.
And Varys has already been taken, probably just so he doesn't get killed himself. Varys is
basically Sarah's called dibs on Varys.
Like Varys got called for the prosecution, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And he doesn't have to testify for them.
No,
really,
but he
though.
knows he'd be putting himself out there more than he would like to.
He's a smart man who's going to take care of himself.
Now, had Tyrion talked to him first, he might have backed Tyrion, but it was one of those things. It's like he wasn't going to say no to whoever asked him.
I mean, he likes Tyrion, but he also likes living.
Yeah,
so
and he likes being in the position he's in too.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's probably. I mean, there's no Master of Coin at this point. That's probably going to end up being Varys, I'd imagine.
Varys has already got Varys has got a very specific job. His Master of Whispers. He's the guy who gets all the info. That's all. That's his sole purpose.
Yeah, and like you said, we get to see that, he knows that Sansa's run away, and it doesn't seem like they have any idea where. So, that's good news on Sansa's regard, I guess, that they don't really have any, they don't have any evidence of her leaving, or at least Podrick doesn't. So that's good news on that regard, I guess, too. So
I love a couple comments that Tyrion makes. One of them is he's like you're being followed. I need you to stop by who? I don't know who. My dad, my sister. I don't know, whoever the man behind the curtain pulling the strings is. I love that he uses that term and that ideology. I don't know who's behind this, but wwhoever they are, they're watching you right now.
The ominous they.
Yeah, the ominous they. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, great line, and it just goes to show how in touch with this world Tyrion really is, and how he knows. He doesn't know who it is, but he knows that somebody put him in that position to get caught. Other line I liked that it was just kind of fun was a great just Tyrion quip was he's like, "Dear God, if I had poisoned him, I hope I wouldn't set it up so obviously that I'd done it."
Yeah.
And it's going to be actually. I'm really looking forward to the trial, because if he gets a chance to really talk, it's going to be great. It's just going to be gold.
So, what do you guys think about Tyrion's shape, though? I mean, we know it's pretty rough. He doesn't have anyone backing him. The only person he's got to hope for right now is Jaime, it sounds like.
Man, I just feel bad for Tyrion. 75% for all the reasons that we should. He's been wrongly accused. He's been thrown in prison, and his squire is, now had to betray him. But the other 25%, just because Podrick couldn't even get wine in for him, so he has to sit there sober. That's a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the god of tits and wine. He doesn't get either in that prison. That's pretty terrible.
Yeah. What is the god of tits and wine supposed to do? Like, he's nothing.
All right, well, I think that about wraps up our King Landing coverage for the week. But let's go ahead and look at Dragonstone this week. And so, guys, get this. Stannis is not crazy about hiring sellswords.
Wait. I have some notes that I would like to read at this point.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to point out, though, he likes to burn people at the stake. He will trust faith he doesn't understand, but man, you hire those dang sellswords, this is just immoral. Immoral.
If you want money, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
Burn my own men alive? Burn my own alive? Yeah, totally worth it. But man, money for those guys, what scumbags.
Okay, so here's what I have Stannis. You know, I have more, and under Stannis I hate him. He's a fat douche. That's all my notes on Stannis for this episode. So
I haven't heard a truer thing all night, sir.
He's talking to Davos, and he's like, Davos, what the hell? Where's my army at? And Davos is sitting there thinking, dude, I gave you an army and you got them all burned up. Like, what is he supposed to do? The guy can't win. He's delivered pretty much everything Stannis wanted him to do.
And he's been the most loyal guy.
Stannis throws it away. He just throws it away. And Stannis is sitting there like, why won't anyone fight for me? I don't understand why. Well, maybe it's because you burn everybody.
Well, maybe it's because you lost an epic battle, so everyone already thinks you're a loser. And then two, the remaining followers you have that are tried and true, you burn them at the stake. I don't know. Why not follow that guy? I mean, he seems like a winner to me.
And like his reasoning is like, it seems like because it's like you can't trust him. It's this honorable. It's like after you trust this, Davos says to himself, you trust this dark magic that you know nothing about, but you can't just pay some guys. Like,
yeah, seriously,
his way of thinking is like messed up.
Okay.
Like,
although I do gotta say, the reaction was really funny with Davos this week. He's like, usurper, Joffrey Baratheon's dead, and then Davos like, that Melisandre might be onto something, maybe, but man, I'm telling you, it's a bad way to get. It's just really funny because all of a sudden he's like, well, maybe she is up to, maybe she's got a point, maybe. I mean, two of those guys she named, they did die, so maybe the crazy hoodoo's up to something. But hey, man, them sellswords.
Do you think Stannis even has money at this point, though?
No, he's broke, and that's what Davos says. Davos says he tells Stannis, and Stannis like, we don't have any money. They're broke. They have no army. Like they're literally just there's nothing left.
So Davos is going to solve that problem. He's going to go to the Iron Bank, get a big-ass loan, and do exactly what Stannis told him not to do, basically.
So guess what, guys? He's going to accumulate a heck of a lot of a debt that he's never going to pay back. Welcome to America. Bam! All right.
College time.
That's right, guys. You're gonna getting so in debt, you're going to spend your entire kinghood paying that debt off, and then you die. Congratulations.
They were eating rotten meat last week. I don't think that they're, what else are they going to do? They have to actually start worrying about money at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of comes around, though. It was really cool that Davos is just sitting there doing his reading lessons with whatever her name is, Stannis' daughter. And he's like, bam, Braavos has got money. Why would Braavos back those douchebags? I mean, they aren't paying their debts back, so what if we say, we're going to take it, and then we'll pay you back?
What is the point? So everyone's in debt to the Iron Bank. I'm trying to figure out why the Iron Bank funds any of these people.
Why does China fund anything? I don't know.
Well, fair enough.
No one's paying them back. Why do they keep giving America money? We're like billions and billions or trillions in debt. Come on, man. Why are they backing us? It's a power thing.
It's amazing how this became like an issue of The Economist, like in the last
hey,
3 minutes.
I'm gonna channel, guys. We're gonna get into Star Wars prequels territory here. We're getting down to the Stannis storyline is devolving into politics and banking clans, so you better watch out.
Their banking clan will sign your treaty.
The Iron Bank of Braavos does want to back the winner, and obviously Stannis is not the winner. But I wonder if Braavos is not out of touch with that. I really don't know where this is going. This is not in the books. This is all new.
Maybe they just want someone aside from Daenerys who is basically tearing down their entire economy over there.
Talking about economy, yeah. All those slaves she's getting rid of, they can't pay back their debts, that's for sure.
So maybe they're just like, well, it's in our best interest to fund anyone except for her.
Last season, they said, we're going to go to the wall. And we're still sitting at Dragonstone worrying about funding. So I'm interested to see how this is going to go, honestly. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, and as you bring that up, Stannis even sort of says, like, Joffrey's dead. This is my moment to go and make my claim before it gets forgotten. So they say they're going to go to the wall, but then it seems like, well, he's thinking, well, let's just go to King's Landing because this is the moment, because Joffrey's not there. And
well, it's a good idea on Stannis' part if he had an army.
Yeah, if he had an army, this would have been perfect timing.
Yeah, it just feels really desperate right now, and it's a little sad in some ways. I mean, I shouldn't have sympathy for him, but I do feel sad for him.
Yeah, I mean, he shot himself in the foot by not, listening to the good advice of any of the people around him, and
wisdom.
So it's like, now there we go. He would be a king without wisdom, and now he has to rely on the Trade Federation to fund his army.
All of a sudden, he's gonna have that droid army, man. Come on. Guys, this has been fun talking about the Star Wars prequels. I mean, Dragonstone this week. So
you were right about one thing, Master. The negotiations were short.
If you do have any questions or feedback you want to give us, go ahead and catch us on Facebook.com/CastBeyondTheWall. You can also find us at Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT. And we also have a YouTube page, The Cast Beyond the Wall, where you can go and subscribe. We've already got a few subscribers, and that way you'll get updates of whenever we're doing our live video sessions like right now, or when I post the fully edited episodes a couple days later. So I hope you guys can find that out. And you can also find all of our podcasts on our new partner, We Got This Coverage website. We're very, very excited to have this partnership with them. They are a great website for movie, TV, gaming, and they get everything. They really do, and they've got a lot of exclusive interviews.
They've got it covered.
They've got it covered. We've kind of got halfway through the episode, and we've already gotten to the King's Landing stuff. But I still want to get a take on our host and guest hosts this week, Austin and Ben, who have not read the books. Who done it? Who poisoned Joffrey? They still didn't answer the question. We got some hints. We got some clues. And we got some maybe some more red herrings, but I want to know, have your theories changed? For Ben, what are your theories?
Well, we got some new leads this week for the whodunit. I'm going to kind of run down just real quickly some of the things that kind of might change your views this week. We had the scene with Marjorie and Elena. I don't know if that makes you think the Tyrells are still doing it or not. We have the scene with Tyrion in the jail. He doesn't seem to think Cersei had anything to do with it. I don't even know if he thinks his family had anything to do with it. I can't get over, though, the Cersei sending away Maester Pycelle. That seems like such a huge red flag to me. Can't get over it. If it's a red herring, shame on them. Shame on them for that one. Jaime seems pretty oblivious to the whole thing. The way they were talking to each other there before the scene, assuming that Cersei's involved, and I do think she is. Jaime doesn't seem to know anything about it. Ben, kind of what are your thoughts? Kind of your take on all of it, really.
Man, it's tough because, like you said, they are so good at kind of, presenting a new trail for you, and giving you a scent and then just leading you away from it. The most likely people in my head still are the Tyrells. But as we discussed earlier, this scene this week did sort of change my mind a little bit, just as far as thinking that it wouldn't be a particularly smart plan to stage it the way that they did and at the moment that they did, if they're responsible for it. As far as other people who could be involved, I don't know. Cersei seems too legitimately distraught about it.
Really? 'Cause here, I keep getting stuck on the whole Maester Pycelle thing. She sends the only person that knows anything about healing people from poisons away right before it happens. Maybe that is a red herring. I don't know, but it's so...
It's very suspicious.
Yeah, at least suspicious, yeah.
And that just because she's distraught, to be fair, just because she's distraught doesn't mean that she couldn't be behind it. She may have realized that it was what needed to happen politically and for the good of their family and the good of Westeros. But it could still have really hurt her to have made that decision.
That's kind of how I viewed it. Is she knew it needed to be done. Tywin does not seem too tore up about it, but doesn't mean she had to like it. She still loved her kids a lot. She just also knew he was a horrible monster. I don't know. That's kind of what I think. But the show does such a good job of really setting anybody up for it. Like, we have the introduction this week of Littlefinger, who clearly knew something about it. I don't know if he was really involved, but he at least knew it was going to happen. But you think the Tyrells, you think that's the main culprit?
Yeah, that's the one that seems the most likely to me.
But, I think you guys are still missing out on the obvious suspect here. Hodor. Hodor did it. He masterminded the whole dang thing. You would never suspect him because no one knows where he's at. He's like way beyond the wall. But he sent a crow. He sent a crow with the poison back that landed on the cup, dropped the poison, and flew away. Hodor.
Hodor's pretty good. He's real quiet about it. Doesn't tell anybody.
I actually can't believe that we haven't discussed the possibility of it being the Melisandre vagina smoke demon. Where has he been?
Right.
He has some.
We did get rid of Gendry, so
that is true.
That's true. I forgot about Gendry. It could have been Gendry. That's what happened. They caught up with Gendry and then said, "Listen, we'll let you go if you poison the king." Right?
Maybe Gendry did it. Maybe Gendry saw an opportunity to become king. He's like, I'm gonna kill Joffrey now.
I'm gonna kill Joffrey. Joffrey killed the rest of my brothers. I'm gonna kill him, fool.
As we bring up this Melisandre Stannis thing, it does beg the question about the leeches. Two of the three names, it worked. Was it? Well, I mean, okay. I guess we don't know if it worked. Were these plans already in motion, or was the Lord of Light actually behind these things? Maybe the Lord of Light poisoned it. And you know what I mean? I think it begs the question of how much involvement did the Lord of Light even have in this situation?
When you get into the supernatural, the spiritual side of it, which is these two things were things that were probably going to happen beforehand. Like Rob's death specifically. That was just. It seems like it was something that was always going to happen, right? And this, I mean, Joffrey,
it seemed like it was planned before Stannis, performs that ritual.
And Joffrey, whoever did this was very. This is a preconceived, planned out idea before they burn the leeches. But it is an interesting dynamic there. And again, we're probably never going to get a clear cut answer. But it is an interesting idea.
I mean, this is a world where everybody dies.
Right.
Everybody dies in Westeros. So
the question to ask yourself is does the spiritual rituals actually do anything, or is it just coincidence? Well, ladies and gentlemen, who done it? Send us questions. Send us Facebook feedback, Twitter feedback. Tell us who you think did it, because we will talk about it until the show finally gives us a clear-cut answer. And this episode sure as heck did not give us any clear-cut answers, although it might have added a few more pieces to the puzzle.
The investigation continues.
Who done it?
You did.
They all did it.
But if you want to know who killed Mr. Body, I did. In the hall. With the revolver.
Let's go ahead and catch up with Arya and the Hound, our favorite duo, the Blues Brothers, if you will, or the Two Musketeers. I don't know, whoever you want to call them. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, I don't know. They're teaming up. They're storming the Riverlands. Let's catch up, and they're just riding along, and she's drinking some water, or they stop to get some water, and this dude, just this nice guy, comes up and says, "Who are you?" Yada, yada. We know how it goes down. So let's just get into the analysis. I felt bad for this gentleman who brought them in. I felt so bad because, unlike most everybody we meet on this show, he was a nice guy. He was actually kind of legit. He's like, "I'll pay you to protect my stuff, and I'll give you the stuff that you get off the robbers."
Well, let's be frank here, okay? The Hound states basically they're going to be dead by winter. How do we know that? Well, we have the evidence of they allowed the Hound in their house.
Yeah.
How stupid is this person? He's not going to live long.
No, the Hound is correct. Yeah. And that was, I think, in a lot of ways, this scenario like kind of sets up what's kind of the thesis of the show.
Right.
Is like, here is a show where even the people that we love do terrible things. And we've got, another example now of a nice, good, decent man who's like, hey, I'll take you in. I will feed you rabbit stew, and I will pay you, a fair wage for fair work. He is a guy who doesn't seem to have been corrupted by the world, which means that when anyone who has been, when the rest of the world catches up to him, he's done. And he would not have survived the winter. And, I felt terrible for him, but the Hound was right.
I think he's right about that guy being dead. There's no way around that. But I mean, steal the guy's money.
You already saw the mountain going around burning the country.
And he steals the guy's silver because he's like, dead men don't need silver. I'm like, oh, come on, man. He might need that silver. I mean, I guess in theory, because you're going to be living longer, you can eat it. But I don't know, robbing a man of what little he does have before he goes out, I mean, I don't know, it just seemed cruel.
I would like to say that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for Arya, though. Her sort of cunning presents that situation for the Hound, and so, which I really like that dynamic where the Hound's sort of like this disgruntled man who, I do what I want, and Arya's like thinking ahead, like, no, this guy can give us food and shelter, let me manipulate the situation to my advantage. And I thought that was really awesome, and just sort of how their philosophies on, and then at the end we do get to see their philosophies where the Hound is like, let me he's going to die, let me steal his money. And Arya's more like, no, this guy helped us, he gave us food, we need to respect that. And so while they both have this tendency to kill people, but
I'm thinking Arya actually knows how to navigate the world a little better than the Hound. The Hound just goes in and kills people, and that's how he navigates it. He doesn't take questions, he just kills people.
Exactly.
And that's worked for him. So, and obviously he's a big, intimidating dude, so what works for him works. But Arya's saying, whoa. Let's step back and look at the situation. We could kill this guy and take his money. Or we could befriend him, he can give us food and shelter, and then we can be on our way, and maybe have some money on the side, and maybe have money on the side. And then, of course, that's where the ideologies clash.
Right.
But I honestly would argue that Arya is actually navigating the world a lot better than the Hound is, because she's being able to take advantage of the situation without people getting hurt. Again, that's kind of like Tyrion to some degree, too. Tyrion was all about self-preservation and gaining the upper hand, but he also knew how to treat people in a way that was respectable. So,
he's also they're both like, I think, inherently decent people, Arya and Tyrion. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head by saying that what makes this such a cool like duo, such an interesting pairing of dynamics is because Arya is like, she is smart enough to navigate around a cruel world while also not letting it touch her like central decency.
Right.
Whereas the Hound is, he is out for himself and he doesn't care who he steps over to get there. And watching these two clash, whether it be in a very serious way or in some of like the comedic like scenes that we get between the two of them, it's like such like a brilliant pairing. It's like the darkest like Bob Hope, Bing Crosby road movie like ever made. And dude, it's such a blast to watch.
Because what was it, 2 weeks ago? He's like, a man's got to have a code. When she asks him about stealing from people, and there he is, just stealing away.
He is. He
brings up like, I just understand how things are. How many Starks have to get beheaded before you figure it out? And on some level, Arya still has something to learn from the Hound. I think there's a level of ruthlessness. There's a level of ruthlessness that she could still learn from him as far as survival goes.
Well,
I think
what you're saying is there's a little bit of naivety and like innocence. Even though she's killed people way deep down, she's still got that hint of innocence that the Hound is.
She's still a Stark right now.
The Hound is robbing from her.
Yeah, but she's still a Stark. She is. She was raised by her father still, and she's still got some of those tendencies, and that hasn't fared her family well so far.
Well, the thing is, though, I think she can survive in her own way without the killing everybody thing, though. That's what I'm saying. Getting at.
Well, Hound didn't kill anyone.
Well, no, he didn't kill him. But
he just punched him in the face and then took his money.
They are going to learn from each other.
Yes, of course they are.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The Hound is actually going to learn something, that's for sure. And Arya is going down the ever dark path. Remember?
Here is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
But no, I don't know if anybody else got the sense. I kind of mentioned it to Caleb, and he didn't really say much about it. But when he says the line, how many Stark's heads do they have to cut off for you to get the picture or whatever, I got the sense that she was ready to kill him, and we know that he's been on her list or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt in that moment she was ready to kill him, and I don't know. I just felt. I don't know if that's. I don't have no. This scene was not in the book, by the way. But I just thought that was very interesting, and I don't know. I got that feel. I don't know if maybe I'm trying to read too much into the.
No, I totally saw that as well. But I think though that she also realizes he's the only reason she's still alive now.
She needs him.
She needs him,
right?
Yeah, but you could totally see it. You could see it in her eyes. She's like, "I want to stab you right through the throat. I have no problem killing fools."
But there you go. That's a prime example of Arya being able to navigate her way through the world because she's relying on the Hound, even though, if he was of no use to her, she would have no problem, even killing him, but certainly not, ever seeing him again.
Well, she's had so many chances to kill him, but she knows she needs him, so that's why she hasn't done that. But, I'm
he
really...
told her you can have one shot, one chance. He was going to let her.
She missed her shot.
I thought they were heading to the Vale.
Oh, that's correct. I apologize. They are heading to the Vale. That's right.
Yeah, to take her to her auntie.
Which, in theory, is where Littlefinger's taking Sansa, right?
Right.
So
which
maybe
I thought was really interesting.
We might actually have a Stark reunion for once?
No. What will happen is Arya will show up and Sansa will get murdered. Because that's how it works for Arya.
Please, God, no.
I'm just saying, everywhere Arya goes, all her family dies. So
I'm gonna say we're gonna have a Pulp Fiction moment where Sansa is John Travolta in the bathroom at this point.
To the north, up to the north. Got a couple storylines here. The first off, let's get this out of the way. Sam.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way.
Let's get Sam out of the way here.
Oh my gosh, Sam, you dummy.
So Sam, he's like,
Sam.
Hey, we're in the Night's Watch, and they don't have women around here. And this is a bunch of thieves, rapists, and killers that are all in the Night's Watch. So I don't want her to be here. I need to protect her. That's a good... Sam, good on you. You want to protect Gilly. That's great. So where am I going to take you? I'm going to take you to a brothel.
I know this great whorehouse, honey. You'll be safe here.
Sam,
here's the thing about it. Sam needs more protection than she does. Sam's he's the one who belongs in the whorehouse.
Oh man! So we're not okay. So I got to ask this question then. Is this not a pro Sam podcast?
This is not.
No, I'm not. They like Sam.
No. Whoa. Like is a very, very strong word.
Well, you don't wish his death every
I don't
week.
want him. Okay, Austin literally wants him to die. Okay,
him.
I don't want him to die on a weekly basis, but he's definitely not. I'm not like when we get to a Sam scene, I'm like, yes, Sam, what's up? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
So, I'm not a Sam fan, but I'm not a Sam hater.
I mean, right now I'm trying to figure out, I've never really understood the appeal of Sam as a character. I get he is actually one of the few decent people on the show, and I understand that.
Right.
But he makes every decision that he makes is the wrong one.
He's just a bumbling buffoon.
He's naive, he's oblivious, and honestly,
here's the world of Westeros punishes dumb people. It does. That's the whole point of it. It punishes dumb people, even moderately stupid people like Ned Stark.
George R. R. Martin when he created Westeros, he wanted to create a place that is like the real world, more like the real world. And we have complete bumbling idiots who are making it along great in the real world, right? And two, I think he also likes to subvert expectations. When we were introduced to Sam, we were like, oh God, when is this guy going to die? Because that's the typical what would happen in a movie, right? Well, he's subverting our expectations by keeping him alive as long as freaking possible. It's like Ned Stark dies. He's the hero. He's going to be around forever.
The last laugh of this show, Sam is king. and then I just smash my television. I'm gonna do it.
Oh my god! But you see that brings me back around to what it was that I was gonna say. Don't leave us with King Sam, because then I have to deal with Queen Gilly. Okay?
Oh god!
I have.
Oh god, Queen Gilly.
Guys, can you explain the appeal of that character to me? Like,
here's the thing with Gilly.
Yeah. I think Gilly's a worthless character that's not worth anything. I really don't.
No. The whole point of her is to make Sam look even worse, because she is like an inbred retard and still makes better decisions than Sam.
Oh my gosh! Oh my god!
So it's just to like set Sam up. It's like, why is this guy still around? I'd rather have her.
Don't say that.
Sam's gonna end up riding dragons or something, man.
That's all I'm saying. You guys think he's
gonna end up as dragon food? It's gonna be great.
Did any of you watch the TV series Skins?
I have not.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that is a series that I love like dearly, and Hannah Murray, who plays Gilly, is a main character on that show, and she's fantastic on Skins, which like makes the fact that Gilly is such like a worthless, like one-dimensional, dead-eyed wonder bread character like that much more offensive.
Take me for what I am, who I
Like,
was meant to be.
oh wow. We need to have a Gilly appreciation day just to make up for this, I think.
Take a moment to remember Gilly, guys. Yeah, but I can honestly say Book Horse Show, I'm not a big fan of that storyline, although I will say Sam has moments left in him. You just have to wait a little longer. And then, you know... but no, I seriously think George R. R. Martin wrote the character to say, F you guys, you thought that guy was going to die. I'll see how long I can reasonably keep him alive.
Yeah, you either die a Ned or you live long enough to see yourself become a Sam.
Become a Sam, yeah.
Wow. There was a couple of really awesome scenes this week, and one of them was when the wildlings go in there, and little dad and son are having a great time talking about how his mom makes the best potato stew in the world, and then gets shot in the head with an arrow.
Mother says it's time to eat.
What's she got boiling? Wait, let me guess. Potatoes. Well, no one boils a potato better than your mum. She got...
Oh, your mom
headshot.
Potatoes. Oh, I can't wait to boil some potatoes with your mom.
And then he's dead, and you're like, holy crap. And then you see the wildlings just run in and rape everybody, and they're like literally butchering people in front of this kid. Oh my gosh.
Thins are nasty. The Thins are nasty animals.
Thins are dirty. I gotta say, guys, I really dig this scene because it was so effective and so shocking, even on a show like Game of Thrones, and I really finally, for the first time, felt like, holy crap. These are wildlings. When they say wildlings, this is what they mean. Like, I always, in season 3, you got to go visit them, but they still seem like they still seem fairly civilized. But these tactics here, just run in, rape and butcher and eat people, yeah, it's pretty dang wild. So
it's scary as
hold on,
dude. Yeah. Like, when he grabs that kid and goes, now here's the deal. Very calmly, he's like, I am going to eat your dead mother and father. I will repeat that. Your dead mama and your dead papa, I am going to eat them. Now run and tell that. You know, like, it's terrifying, man. Like, and not too much on this show do I find creepy, but that dude is creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
And I think what is important here is what Caleb said, you know, we kind of got a humanized version of the wildlings, but these are the wildlings that they've been talking about. Like, why... You know, they're threatening and all this stuff.
Barbaric and evil.
These are the wildlings on the north. These are what live on the north, and this is why people are terrified of them, because they are terrifying.
Yeah, when they talk about the wildlings at Castle Black, like when they, are talking about how savage and evil, and, when they're mocking Jon Snow for daring to speak a kind word about them, these are the people they're thinking of.
Right. And so it definitely brings a lot more reason to why they would think of them that way.
Those your parents? Open your eyes. I'm going to eat them. Do you hear me? I'm going to eat
your dead mama, and I'm going to eat your dead papa. Go tell the crows at Castle Black.
They realize the wall that they're going to get attacked from both sides as soon as Mance lights that fire. And then they realize that they're horribly undermanned, and Jon told Mance they had 1,000 men on the wall, which is totally not even close to how many guys they have. And then you have those two dudes who come back from Craster's Keep who are like, oh, we got away, but all those dang cannibal Night's Watch guys are still back there.
They're dead regardless. Like, look, you leave the castle and try to go kill those guys, you're putting yourself at huge risk. You're reducing numbers at the castle. If you stay there, you're dead anyway because Mance is coming. So they're in bad shape. I say abandon ship.
Just abandon the wall completely.
It's a very
right. Just get the hell out of there because it's a lost cause.
Yeah,
go run to Bolton because he's the only one left in the north.
It's a very dire situation, and I honestly have no idea how they're going to get out of this. It's very hard to see any sort of situation where they make it, because it looks very dire right now.
And they make the decision, by the way, to not help any of the countryside.
Like, I mean, that's what they've got to do.
They've left all the surrounding villages just to die. I mean, yeah, and I don't know that they have any other choice, but I thought it was good to point out that it's not their job, really.
I like Jon Snow fine. He's not one of my favorite characters, but I like him enough that if anything happened to him, I'd be upset.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if and when Mance and all of the wildlings do make it to Castle Black, and if and when they are successful in massacring everyone in the Night's Watch, I only have so much sympathy because there's Jon Snow going, look, man, like they've got giants and they've got like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in their army, and they're coming, and all the higher ups are like, yeah, right, giants, like, get out of here. Like, they're going to have to deal with the fact that, they didn't listen the first time.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I really like Jon Snow. He is probably one of my more favorite characters. But like you said, I think even let's say they do come and they do wipe out the wall. Where does that put? How's Tywin going to respond to that? Because now you've got your kingdoms are now in danger, and you've been told that we need more men, and nothing has been done about this, and you can't really feel sympathy for them either. So
no, this is totally this is the point in time where you're totally rooting for the wildlings to crush everybody. You're like, those guys don't have it together. Why root for them? They suck. Go ahead, wildlings. They deserve to be crapped on.
And they've been warned for 3 seasons now. So.
Yeah, I agree. And if Jon Snow were still with the wildlings, I would have absolute zero reason to worry about what happens to the Night's Watch.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't get excited about Dany's storylines very often, but when I do, I get really freaking excited. And this week delivered. Last when we started the first episode, I was like, not much is really going on. But this week, she makes it to Meereen, and they send out their champion. They're gonna have this huge duel. Let's go ahead. Here's what the champion has to say.
What is he doing?
I believe he means to...
He says that we're an army of men without man parts. He claims you are no woman at all, but a man who hides his cock in his own asshole.
Ignore him, Your Grace. These are meaningless words.
Not meaningless if half the city you intend to take is listening to them.
I found this scene to be quite funny, actually.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
I love how, cocky they are. It's just so funny how cocky they are. And it just, within 3 seconds, it's over.
What's funny is you would think, even each one of these cities has been incredibly arrogant. None of them have taken Daenerys seriously.
Right.
So you would think by the third city they'd be like, crap, we should probably give this some weight. And then she actually has a really dang big army, parked right outside their fortress. So you would really think they'd start to take
and siege weapons.
Seriously.
Yeah, this whole scene beautifully just blends this mix of humor and very serious weighty stuff that this show is really good at juggling sometimes. Yeah. And you have this scene with this champion and Dario, and it reminded me of the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the guy comes out
yep
spinning and then and so that's great. one of the funniest like scenes in film history, and it's a beautiful kind of play on that dynamic, and obviously much more vulgar. But then, like, you know, Daenerys has a fantastic speech.
Oh yeah. I have to give it to Emilia Clarke. She not only delivers an epic speech, she does it in a foreign language. That is real dang. That's fine acting right there. It's in a language none of us know, but like she delivers it with such confidence and grandiose. You're just like, holy crap! I mean, she means business.
And it's a brilliant idea, you know. And I'm like you. I'm not Dany's biggest fan, but I really enjoyed the scene. And I thought it was fantastic, and it was a brilliant idea to shoot the unbroken chains over the wall and speak to, she wasn't even speaking to the people of Meereen, she was speaking to the slaves, basically already turning them against their own masters. Like, how, like, that's a brilliant, you know.
Do I have a champion?
Give an epic speech, and I love the closing shot of the episode even was brilliant, just because you see the slave look, he's like, I mean,
it sort of seems like
it clicks with him. He's like,
these things come off.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of seems like he's like, oh my, these come off, and like they have this click of like, this is possible. Like, this is not how I have to live. And yeah, it was just incredibly.
The master behind him, kind of looking over his shoulders, like,
oh no, yeah. I mean, they probably have never even like. This is just the way they've lived. They probably have no idea, that that's even possible. You know,
Austin, what are your overall thoughts on Daenerys? Because I'm sitting here brokenhearted hearing that these two are not.
No, I love her. I do. I love her. I think in a show where bad things always happen to good people, that's like the one like bright spot where good seems to be winning out, and it won't happen forever. You know, things are going to turn bad for her at some point because that's how things go. But I really like her. She's one of the few people really fighting for good and winning.
Yeah, I love her. I actually think last time I was on, we may have talked about just like who we wanted to kind of be like our end game, like Iron Throne, like person on the Iron Throne. But Daenerys is like my number one choice.
Yeah, and I think she's young and definitely naive, but she's hopeful and has like a good heart and good intentions and stuff, and that's fun.
Yeah, my problem with her, and and here's the thing: I don't hate Daenerys. I really don't. I only come across a little down on her because she's so popular. So I feel like there's going to be a little bit of something of a counterbalance. I don't hate her. I just definitely do not like her as much as a lot of the fan populace does. I think she's a very, we talked about it earlier, I think she's a very empowering, incredible, three-dimensional female character that I can get behind in that sense. And there's a lot of times I am rooting for her. But it's the moments of her naivety shows, but she's not admitting that she has the naivety to begin with. That's really what bugs me, and there's a sense of entitlement that she carries around that bothers me. Do I think her heart's in the right place? Absolutely. She's freeing slaves. That's like real leadership. All these people are squabbling over a throne, and she's actually doing something meaningful, freeing slaves. She's fighting a war that's got something behind it. That's great.
But she's the type of leader that people fight for. Like, whereas you have Stannis, who is the complete opposite. No one wants to fight for him because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Right.
That idealism is what is really driving people. It's her biggest weakness and also her greatest strength.
Yeah,
it is.
There's a certain idealism about her that you kind of know is going to keep her from ever, taking anybody on hand to hand. I don't expect, to see a lot of scenes of Daenerys straight up killing people herself. But she's really good at commanding people to do killing on her.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think she has a problem doing that. I think she realizes that's the way that business is done.
She's a very inspiring figure. She inspires people to fight. You know what I mean? Inspires people to see what they can do. And I think that's all great. There are a lot of strengths to her character. Like I just get frustrated with her naivety and a lot of decisions that she makes. And I mean, I'm Team Jorah Mormont, and she's like all friend zoning that guy, and I don't like that. So
he's a dirty old man.
I will say that after season 1, she definitely was my favorite character. I think her character arc in story 1 is just outstanding, and she was definitely one of my favorite characters at the end. And I do hear where Caleb's coming from, though. I do like Dany. In the end, I do like Dany, and I am pulling for her. But I think that there's some times where she's very, entitled and prideful, and she refuses to admit it, and And like Caleb said, Jorah Mormont has been giving her all, like, since they've been, since the dragons, he's been saying, these are dragons, and then in episode 1, we see him snap, and she's sort of surprised, and Jorah's kind of like, I've been telling you, they're dragons, and he gives her the advice that sometimes it's good, she ignores it, and a couple of times it's worked out for her, but a lot of times, sometimes it hasn't, and there are also times where he's given advice where she probably should have listened, and I really like Jorah Mormont too, so I don't know. I do like her, and I am pulling for her. I just think that she still has some growing up to do, and some of her flaws are frustrating.
Well, I guess it's the point where for me, it's like I'm pulling for her, but when eventually she does make a mistake, I'm not going to feel any sympathy for her.
Well, to be fair,
I definitely feel sympathy because she still tries to do really good things, but I will understand why it occurs.
And to be fair, I have a soft spot for Jorah too, but maybe her biggest mistake, it's not so much was her biggest mistake from the get-go was trusting him back when he was going to kill her. I mean, we have to remember that.
Yes. And I think that's important, but ultimately her faith was not misplaced, though.
No, not at all, but I think you have a point in that she may yet have a run-in with someone who is like Jorah, who had the same mission as him, but won't, end up using the same kid gloves. You know what I mean? Like, they will end up actually betraying her, and she might not see it coming, and that is a very real possibility.
Right.
I have always been extremely suspicious since he's shown up on the scene as Dario, and I have no idea if I legitimately have no idea where he's going, even from the books, because I haven't read that far ahead. But Dario, to me, he's against her. The people that he's with say, "Yeah, let's kill her." So he's like, "Nah, she's beautiful. Cut your heads off. I'm on your team now." Just who's to say he won't do that sort of thing to her when another beautiful woman comes along?
Man's got to have a code.
Like, what if the next girl shows up and he thinks is more beautiful? Is he going to cut Daenerys' hide and go join the other army? I just think he's very suspicious, and we don't know anything about him. And I don't know.
Obviously obviously the quote about "I thought you were beautiful" was totally to reel her in. I mean, that's totally.
Oh yeah.
And she went went hog wild for that. She ate it all up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't trust Dario either. I don't. And ultimately the guy's a sellsword. So there's that too. What if someone decides to pay him a bunch of money? But yeah, we'll see what happens with Dany. Again, like I said, I don't hate her, and I there are these moments, and like the moment in season 3 in Asta 4 where she rallies the Unsullied, where you're like, yeah. I mean, you're just all behind her, and this is another one of those great speeches and those great moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, this woman's on top of the world, and she's doing everything right. All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps up our recap of the episode. Overall, this is kind of another story, more setup. We are still in episode 3, so more setup. Very interested to see where it goes next week. Before we do our pre-cap for next week's episode, we're going to see, do we have any Q&A, any questions coming in from the interwebs?
Looks like we have some on the YouTube.
On the YouTube, okay.
Yeah, so we have Michael Wilson here, who writes, if you could, which Game of Thrones character that has died would you have rather lived, and how do you think that would affect the show?
That's a very interesting question.
There's so many characters I've liked that have died.
That's a good question,
yeah,
man.
It is.
We can go ahead and rule out Ned, just because even though we all love Ned, there wouldn't be a story if Ned hadn't
this show wouldn't have happened.
We'll go ahead and we'll rule him out. I think my answer would probably be Catelyn. Even without Robb, I think that her presence would be deeply felt. Like, I think that she would find another way to influence every side of the war, and I think her reaction to having to live without now all of her children and her husband. I mean, I'm not sure how someone survives through that much. It's that much tragedy and sorrow and death, but I think it would have been really compelling. And that actress was fantastic too. And I think that she probably would have been given a lot of good stuff to work with.
Yeah, and it still would have been that little beacon of hope for the Stark family too. I think I'm going to go with Khal Drogo.
I didn't think about him.
I didn't either.
I always remember he gives that freaking epic speech after they kill Viserys. She's like, "We're gonna go and destroy the villages, kill the children, rape the women." You're like, I mean, even though he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna rape the women," you're like, "Yeah,
rape the women." Woo!
Yeah, exactly. You're like, this guy's freaking awesome. And then the way they had Jason Momoa playing that, he just like chewed the scenery and he commanded every scene he was in, and to see how that would have changed Daenerys' arc too, because obviously his death was so crucial to who she is now. It would have totally changed her storyline. But I just seeing that the guy who commanded the Dothraki and being able to actually maybe make it all the way over.
I'm gonna go with Renly, actually.
Okay, good. I'm glad you went that. That was my second choice.
You took mine.
Haha! Just jump right in there, sneaking before you can say anything. There's only so many choices, right? And him being one of the 5 kings, it could have really, if he had lived longer and really was not in it for very long, you could have really like played up the war a little bit more. You'd have a whole other kind of king in the fight, because really what it came down to in the War of the 5 Kings was really just the Starks versus the Lannisters. Stannis gets wiped out really early, maybe not early as much as quickly, and Renly never really gets a chance to fight, and the Greyjoys are seemingly doing nothing. So to have Renly in the fight with as big of an army, as much support as he had, I think would have been really interesting.
And the character I'm going to pick is not because for the character's sake, but because of what this death causes for everybody else. And I'm actually going with the Karstark. What would have happened had Robb not cut off his head and decided to let him be part of it? They wouldn't have had to go to the Freys. They wouldn't have had to do that whole ordeal, and maybe he would have had more of a legitimate chance. And so I'm not picking Karstark because I want him to come back, per se, but just his death influences the rest of Robb's story so much. What if he hadn't died? And what if Robb decided not to kill him? Where would Robb's story have gone?
That's a really good one. I like that. It's a pretty minor character that had huge implications. I like
right.
it.
Robb and Catelyn would still be alive.
Karstark, why did you have to go for that revenge, man? You just let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go. Let it go. Turn away and slam the door.
Yeah, that was a great question. Austin, are there any other spoiler-free questions on that?
How much of a role do you think Peter Littlefinger plays, and can we trust him?
Well, can we trust Littlefinger? Have you been watching the same show I have, guys? No.
By his own words,
we can't trust Littlefinger. He specifically told us, and by us I mean Ned Stark, but that kind of us too. Don't freaking trust me. He tells you that, and so no, you can't trust Littlefinger. You can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think? We already talked about this a little bit in the episode, but if you guys want to re-elaborate a little bit.
Man, we didn't really come to a conclusion on that.
I think I'm going to say no, and I think he's an opportunist. I don't know if that part's even arguable. Like I think he wasn't involved, though I can see why people would think he is. And I think he saw, all right, well, I can snag Sansa now, which fulfills some personal desires of his. Also, she's a pawn, right? And
right.
Very, very important to both his wife, essentially. I don't know if they're actually married yet, but she's the key to the North. So if he can hide her from the Lannisters, I'm sure they'll find out eventually. It's going to be a really good thing for him.
Can I not just believe that Littlefinger just rescued Sansa because he loved Catelyn, and he's just a good guy?
It's about the climb. It's the climb.
It's about the climb of love.
We also did have a tweet from one of our listeners, Dalton, this week. That we kind of covered, but I do want to give a shout out to Dalton at the Good Trash Genre Cast for tweeting in. He just wanted us to make sure we talked about the Cersei Jaime thing. It was really bothersome to him. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and remind everyone that you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/castbeyondthewall. You can follow us on Twitter at cast_. @beyond_GOT. And then you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. You'll get updates about whenever we post these live videos every Tuesday night, or when I post the full episode, usually Wednesday night or Thursday morning. And I just want to remind everybody that you can also find all our stuff at We Got This Covered, because guess what? They got everything covered. Games, TVs, Game of Thrones, it's all covered. Let's go ahead and prehash the episode, this next week's episode, Oathkeeper.
If I told you to leave the capital right now and find Sansa and bring me her head, would you do it?
He wasn't involved in Joffrey's death, but you were.
It wouldn't matter to Cersei. She won't rest until my head's on a spike.
You gonna fight for him now? You're a steward, you traitor's bastard. Give me an excuse.
I will answer injustice with justice.
Dany balances justice and mercy. Jaime tasks Brienne with his honor. Jon secures volunteers while Bran, Jojen, Mira, and Hodor stumble on a shelter. As per usual, pretty vague.
Yeah, quite vague. What interests me the most out of that is Jaime and Brienne.
I agree.
Definitely the stuff that I'm going to be looking forward to the most. And actually, I would be curious to see now how their relationship will be affected by the scene this week.
Right.
And whether Jaime will be, I don't know, maybe forthcoming about that, or if Cersei will be forthcoming about that. Just how is it going to affect how Brienne sees Jaime? Because, I mean, she loves Jaime. I mean, plain and simple, Brienne loves Jaime, and this is not the best light to shine on a man that she fell in love with because she found out that he was a good man on the inside, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah, I'm very interested to see. We haven't really had a chance to actually revisit their dynamic yet this season, so very excited about that.
For me, I'm really excited about I'm always excited about Bran stuff because I know that eventually his storyline will become epic and awesome. I don't know. It just seems like it's taking forever, but I just love his character. Like, I know that it's headed somewhere awesome. It just takes so long, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm curious, more so this season than I was last season because of that vision we had last episode. I really want to know what that's about. I'm hoping they actually follow up on that like next episode, as opposed to like wait half the season and then maybe pick up on it. Because that's the problem. That's the brand storylines are. I mean, obviously we know it's going to pay off long term, but a lot of his storylines are so far it's built on a lot of promises that we haven't seen paid off. So I really hope we get a direct correlation to that vision we saw last episode. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a show. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week, those of you who are watching a live stream. And we will continue to live stream. We generally do this at Tuesday nights at around 8:15 Central Time, so that would be 6:15 Pacific or 9:15 Eastern Time. We want to thank our guest host, Ben, so much for joining us again this week.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. I always love doing this show.
And do you have anywhere people can follow you if they want to catch any of your work or anything like that?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/b3nfriend, and that's pretty much it in the way of work that's kind of public. But
hey, Ben has some great tweets, guys. I gotta say, especially when he's watching things, they're kind of hilarious. So I must insist you follow this guy. It's pretty great stuff. And for the rest of you listeners out there, again, thanks for coming in, and we will see you next week.
What are they going to do when they run into the Trade Federation's destroyer droids, man? Like, they're done.
They're done. I mean, the house is just going to be like, fuck the king, fuck the king's god, fuck the droids, I'm out of here.